The Somewhere in the Ring podcast is part of the Lionsgate and eOne podcast network. We hope you enjoy jumping in with Andrew and Ryan somewhere in the ring.
The following podcast is scheduled for one recording with no time limit. Making their way down to Somewhere in the Ring, Andrew Sanford and Ryan Sprague.
Woo! I tripped coming down the ramp again. Damn it!
You gotta stop doing that. That is some of my favorite. I'm always. I think we've talked about this before. I'm always surprised people don't trip going down the ramp more often. And one of my which WrestleMania was it where the ramp was like people were having to like run down it because it was so long.
Gosh.
That was pretty recent. Like that was in the last few years. Like I think I remember.
Was.
Yeah. Oh man, that's gonna drive me nuts. Could that
know.
have been? Oh, yeah, I'm not sure, but I
know
remember
that's
it
when
was,
like the they were coming down on like those motorized scooters to like just cut the time off and
Yep.
not
Yeah,
exert
yeah.
all their energy.
And they had to like cut around it and stuff too. It was
Oh man, we
real
should
good,
play one of
real
those
good.
videos.
Yeah,
I'll try
yeah,
to
yeah.
find one and put it in right here. Hey Ryan, put that in right here. Welcome everyone to Somewhere in the Ring. Andrew.
You.
How you doing, buddy?
Ryan, I have been potty training for the last week. My children, not myself. I can use the potty just fine. Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that.
But just want to make sure. So that's been an adventure. It's been a lot. It's been a long week, but dag nabbit, we're here. We're ready to talk wrestling. I'm excited to talk about our favorite feuds, which we're going to get into this episode. And we've got some listener questions. It's going to be a good time. How are you?
I'm great, man. We were talking off air earlier today of how fun of an episode I think this is going to be. Not only our top 3 countdown, like you mentioned, rivalries, feuds, whatever you want to call them. But we got some fun news stories.
Yeah.
At first, I didn't think a ton happened this week, but we dug deep, and I think we got some good stuff. But before we do that, we have some really good news. We have a new Patreon subscriber.
Hey,
yes,
go.
Let's go, Rebecca D. Thank you so. Oh, Andrew's got his.
I got the
his
strobe
rave
lights. The
show
strobe
going
lights
again.
for Rebecca. Let's see when I try it. There we go. Yeah,
there it is.
Thank
for those
you.
watching on
Tim
YouTube.
Cook.
Yes, I love it. I love it. For those just listening, every time Andrew throws up the devil horns, thumbs up, peace sign. I think we get some fun interactive stuff.
And I don't call them, to be clear, I don't call them devil horn. I call them the Spider-Man thwip hands, which Gene Simmons admitted to at one point. I think I've mentioned this on the air before too, but like everybody was like, why do you do this? The devil horns. And he was like, I don't know. That's how Spider-Man shoots his webs. So I
really?
Yeah, I'm like 90% positive and I refuse to look it up.
Yes, I'm going with that.
Yep.
I would much rather that. The thwip forever. Rebecca, thank you so much for joining the Patreon campaign. We hope you enjoy your bonus content, and we hope you just enjoy supporting us. We're a brand new show. We're only 10 episodes in, but we have an awesome following on our Facebook group, over on Patreon. So, guys, if you want to join our Patreon campaign, go to patreon.com/somewhere in the ring podcast, and you can check out all the benefits over there. We would love to have you. And Rebecca's also a Patreon subscriber at Somewhere in the Skies. So she is just Great Gatsby, man. She is just doling that money out. Great Gatsby, did he dole money out? I don't know what made me think of Great Gatsby.
I don't either, Ryan.
Could it be the Broadway musical, the hit acclaimed Broadway musical
that's the only thing people know about the Great Gatsby. Is the Broadway
haven't
musical.
heard good things about that. But anyways, thank you, Rebecca. Thank you so much for joining our Patreon campaign. And one other bit of personal news, Andrew, that I wanted to share with the audience. I'm going to SmackDown.
Hey!
I am going to SmackDown on May 31st. It's going to be in Albany, New York, which is where Andrew and I actually went to see Monday Night Raw back in December.
They were just there.
I know. Well, this was actually a surprise. It wasn't scheduled originally, but lo and behold, this is going to be the first SmackDown after King and Queen of the Ring in Jeddah.
Hey.
So I'm expecting some good stuff, some good fallout from that event. Cody Rhodes was just on the Busted Open podcast, which is actually part of one of our news segments as well. But he had mentioned that he was really excited to come to Albany, New York for SmackDown, and he's planning something very special. So I don't know what that's going to be, but I will be reporting live from SmackDown. I'll be live tweeting.
Amazing.
Maybe throwing up. I won't be throwing up vomiting, but I might be
Sure.
throwing up some videos on Twitter as well.
Yeah.
I don't know why I even clarified that. It was very.
It's always best to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So far we have potty training and vomiting. What else can we fit into this opening?
I'm sure we can find something, maybe some laundry talk.
Yeah.
I'm sweating right now. That's another bodily function.
I'm in your state right now, and it is hot as BALLS.
You're not in my state. Well, you're in the state that I love. I'm in New Jersey. Jersey.
Okay, fine.
Usually
New Jersey people
state.
claim New York. Why you're not going to be?
I know. I still claim New York. I'm wearing my New York Rangers hat, but I just want to make it clear that I'm not in the place that I love. But it's okay. It's all right. I'll be there later. I got to take a nice short trip to work later. So.
Oh, well, then we shouldn't waste any time. Should we get into the
news? Let's get to the news.
Awesome, buddy.
What we got going on? Yeah.
We are going to start with a interesting story. I guess I'll take the lead on this one. Cody Rhodes, he is maybe looking for a classic wrestling manager in WWE. So he made an interesting comment to Mark Henry recently on the Busted Open podcast this past week. And I actually have a clip from that I'd love to play so that we can get a better feel for what he might be talking about here. So let me pull that up. Here we go.
If you do a signing, there is nobody else, and you make a mint. You don't have to apologize for that shit. You Cody Rhodes.
One of the reasons I liked having Arn Anderson around me, it was nice to have a guy over my shoulder say what you just said. Say we're not apologizing for greatness. We're at mediocrity loves company and we're not joining that company. Like, it was something I actually missed when Logan and I were doing this contract signing, to see him flanked by so many people. I don't know, maybe I'm looking for the classic wrestling manager to join me on this title reign. And I don't know who that is or what that is, but it just felt like I wouldn't mind someone to holler the stuff that you just did.
Interesting. First of all, could Cody Rhodes not play like Lex Luthor? Let's be honest.
I can see that. Sure.
I just love how greasy politician he's looking nowadays. But that's our champion. Arn Anderson. Do you know much about Arn Anderson? His past manager?
Yeah, I mean, just mainly from his work in like WCW and WWF/E. I was more of a, obviously we weren't really alive during his heyday. I wasn't like super dialed into wrestling when he was like an active wrestler and a member of the Four Horsemen and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But people are loving him over in AEW. He's definitely an old school style of manager, or style of wrestler, and producer and manager. And it's interesting. It's interesting to hear Cody talk about this, because I would argue he doesn't need a manager. Mm-hmm. I would argue, I'm always more of a, managers go to people who can't really do mic stuff for the most part. And Cody's very good at that. And he's always good about, there was another story this past week that one of a head writer at the Rock's head writer at WWE, Brian Gerwitz, I think is his name, had mentioned that originally Cody was supposed to go out when he announced that The Rock was going to be facing Roman Reigns and really sell it and push it. And it was, but the way he said it versus how he looked kind of changed things.
Right.
People got on Cody's side because of that. And I think that's part of that. He has an authenticity that many wrestlers will never have when they're on the mic. So I don't Brock Lesnar's not that great on the mic. That's why he has Paul Heyman. Roman Reigns isn't that great on the mic. That's why he has Paul Heyman. There are these people who, who are managed by not Paul Heyman as well. They used to want The Undertaker to not say much at all, which is why he had Paul Bearer. There's got to be a manager whose name isn't Paul. But
what was Macho Man, or not Macho Man? The guy that used to have the bullhorn.
Jimmy Hart.
There
Jimmy
we
Hart.
go.
Jimmy Hart, yeah, who
Loved
managed
him.
all kinds of people. And he was, again, he's great, but it's more for, I feel like that is more of a thing for people who need it. And I get the kind of like, oh, Logan Paul was flanked by these people, so why not, I should have my entourage too. But that's just more of a heel thing to me. And it always has been. So maybe when he becomes a heel, it would make a little bit more sense. But currently, I don't see that. That being said, honestly, I was watching that clip and I was like, why not just have Mark Henry do it?
Boom.
Dude,
Mark Henry's contract with AEW is up in like the next month or so.
Awesome.
And he hasn't mentioned re-signing. So it would be perfect timing. And he can clearly talk Cody up. He loves him and gives him his flowers every chance he can. So if I was going to ask you, who do you think would make a good manager? But I think we both answered that.
Yeah. I think Mark Henry, honestly. Like, why not? And aside from that, like, I don't need to see. I would rather, especially because I don't believe Mark Henry has been a manager before. I know when him and D'Lo used to run together, they would like be out there for each other, but that was more like a tag team capacity. So I think having him, it would feel fresh and new. Like, I know Cody says like, oh, maybe like a classic wrestling manager. And I'm just like, well, I want to see him break some new ground like he's been doing. So I don't want to see especially not like a Paul Heyman or what have you. Like if he's going to get a manager, I want it to be fresh, which is hard.
It is. I know. Well, we'll see. A lot could happen in the next couple months. If even Cody Rhodes comes out still champion after King of the Ring. I know. Hear me out. It would be an incredible shakeup if Logan Paul came out of that thing, not putting his title on the line, but winning the undisputed championship.
Sure. Comes out a double champ. It would be like, it would be almost like too unbelievable, which is why it's almost, I get why they're doing it. I get why, these Saudi Arabia shows are always like, we need a match that can only happen here. Here's $1 billion. Please ignore everything else that we're doing. And so it just feels a little forced to me currently. I don't think Logan Paul is at that level yet. I don't think he's going to. And I have said here before, I could see him getting into the picture like throughout this year, but to me, that's like the world heavyweight title. Like the Universal champ, if it was Logan Paul, would just be kind of lame at this point. I think but I get it in the sense that he's got that outside appeal. And that brings more eyes into wrestling that don't usually watch wrestling. But I think he's already doing that. And I don't think it would benefit them that much more to put that other belt on him. If anything, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him maybe come out of this with like a face turn, something like that. I feel like they got to get something out of this, hopefully. And I think what that could be is we could see Logan Paul be a face and then head into SummerSlam, which is going to be in Cleveland, where he's from, a face. I think that would make more sense. But we'll see. I don't know. The whole.
Why don't you know, Andrew?
Yeah.
Well, hey, maybe we'll see the debut of a new Prime energy drink flavor in Jeddah.
There we go.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Hey, let's move to our next story. This is a fun one. This comes from The Undertaker. And we do have a clip from it as well. But do you kind of want to set up this story for us, Andrew?
So there was a roast of Tom Brady on Netflix last week, which, was like most of those roasts was over the top and said some things that did not need to be said. Like, they make joke, they push the envelope boundaries, whatever. Very early on, there was a joke made that Tom Brady did not care for, and he got up and said as much to Jeff Ross, who made the joke, because none of these people can ever really handle what's going on. They're just given large sums of money, so they go with it anyway. Yeah. And in this one, the Undertaker saw that, and in his infinite wisdom was like, there should be one of those for wrestlers, like for the people with notoriously thick skin, the people who often don't like it's who are usually very good at making fun of themselves and making fun of others and not letting things go too far. Those people, he thought there should be a roast. Go ahead and play the clip.
We'll play the clip. Yeah. So this is Undertaker's idea of a roast taking place during WrestleMania week, which would be interesting. But yeah, let's go ahead and play this clip from the 6 Feet Under podcast, and we'll talk a little bit about it on the other side.
I wonder what I don't want to say instead of doing the Hall of Fame, because the Hall of Fame is very important, but maybe some kind of restructure of it. But a roast. What do you think about doing a roast?
I think doing a roast would be fun. I mean,
I think it would be huge.
I think what would be absolutely hilarious is all those guys that respect the crap out of you.
I wasn't talking about
to
me.
Do a roast of the Undertaker.
Wait a minute. I wasn't talking about me getting roasted.
You want to talk about
whoa.
A nice little gate. That would be a sellout show. Who has the name of the Undertaker that deserves to be roasted before you do?
Hulk Hogan.
He wouldn't. You know good and well that would never happen.
Okay, give me a no. I mean, let me think of somebody else. Flair would be good, but he's affiliated with the wrong.
Yeah,
he's in the wrong branch. Triple H.
That would be another great one.
Stephanie
would be great.
See, there's a lot of people.
There's not a lot. There's two. That's not a lot.
I'm just thinking that we need to do a test model. I think we should do Stephanie.
Okay, so first of all, what sort of baggage did this dude have with Stephanie McMahon? I mean, it's clear that he built this entire roast idea around Stephanie. In my opinion, what do you think, man?
First of all, I so purposely don't listen to his podcast because the Undertaker is somebody who, for so long, and I'm so on board with having the walls broken down and all that stuff, but to have somebody that spent all of their career talking like this, like exclusively, even when he was the American Badass, it was still, and to hear him just kind of sitting back and jawing like this and talking like, and it is jarring every single time. But I love that almost immediately. There's a few things going on here. Every person he brought up is a terrible example. Let me just start there. That would not work. Hulk Hogan would not work. Like there too much racist stuff would be said about and to Hulk Hogan and about the fact that he's a racist. Right. Ric Flair would probably be wasted by the end of the roast, and when it's his turn to speak, would say all of the most horrible things, and it would just be a bunch of jokes about how large his genitalia are. And with Triple H, like nobody's going to make fun of their boss. And like, look, for him to be like, let's test it out on the woman who was basically roasted anytime that she was on TV to begin with. We talked about that last episode. It shows how thin and flimsy the idea is to begin with, and how poorly it could go almost immediately. Like there's no room for something like this. And I get to have him immediately go like, well, not me. Like, I'm not talking about me. Like, I don't want to get roasted like that. It's like, yeah, none of you would. Not a single person would be okay with this. Like, so it was so funny to see him bring that up, and I hadn't heard that clip, and to know that he immediately goes like, I don't want it to happen to me, but I want it to happen to somebody else. It's like,
oh, cool.
Yeah.
What? Again, just showing how fragile the egos of many of these wrestlers actually are. Like, yeah, I want to roast the shit out of somebody else, but when it comes to me, nobody's going to do that.
Everybody on that dais is going to get made fun of. And here's the other big sticking point. Pro wrestlers are rarely funny. They try to be. The writers try to make them funny. so few of them are funny. I could count them on one hand and still probably have like 2 or 3 fingers left. Like it's just not their strong suit. So to think like, oh, let's get a bunch of wrestlers together where their main goal isn't super to be funny to begin with, it's just to be mean. That's a recipe for disaster. And not even the kind where I'm like, yeah, we should absolutely do it because it's going to be so bad. It would be horrid. Like there would just be awful, terrible things that would never be able to be unsaid.
Exactly. Yep. I'm going to say Undertaker is 0 for 1 on good ideas heading into WrestleMania 41. Well, this is kind of cool.
That being said, I do think the idea of doing it the week of WrestleMania, that's the only good part of the idea is they should, like, in the lead up to WrestleMania, a bunch of stuff like that is a fun idea. Like, I think, like we talked
about
last week.
Truth to do it.
Oh God, again, so racist that roast would be. There's no way it wouldn't be. We cannot have a person of color. We cannot have a woman. Like it has to. Hulk Hogan is the best option because everyone hates him.
Oh, God.
So like that's the only way it really works.
Our best option is Hulk
people
Hogan.
Already dislike. I know.
That's where we're at. Okay.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good.
Horrible. Well, let's move to our next news story, man. Iron Claw just came out recently on VOD, and the Von Erichs are back in the news. And I remember I told you that I wanted the whole Von Erich family to eventually be in the AEW Hall of Fame. And the reason I brought it up is because there are new Von Erichs that are wrestling. And they, they're paying their dues. These are not 2 guys who are just resting on their last name to get them right to the top. Like they're going to Japan, they're going to Mexico, they're doing the indies to try to work their way up to one of the major brands. And it sounds like we might be actually getting closer to the Von Erichs. I want to get their names right. I believe it's Ross and Marshall Von Erich. They teased that they might be heading to one of the big brands. So I want to go ahead and play this clip that comes from the Von Erich podcast, which just recently debuted.
Cool.
And talk a little bit about it on the other side.
One of the number one questions, I'm sure, why haven't you guys went to WWE?
The reason we haven't gone to a major company yet is, it's definitely in the cards. Ross and I, in the beginning, we had an opportunity to go to WWE to go to do a tryout. We both didn't feel like it was time because once you go, you're showing this is what we have to offer. This is the best of what we have to offer, and we didn't feel like we were at our best yet. And so, why would we go when we don't feel like we're at our top,
right?
At the top or whatever. And so we wanted to give it some time. Right now, we feel like we're polished and ready. We could go wrestle anywhere, and I feel like it's coming. It's coming soon, and so this is like the calm before the storm. We've been in conversations with both companies and stuff, and so we're kind of just seeing where it goes. But it feels like the calm before a storm because I got a feeling it's coming soon. It's coming soon, and I would love to talk on it more. But there's some stuff I can't really talk about yet. But
cool.
That's
very exciting.
That pretty much says to me they've probably signed a contract already. Yeah, and then we've got the remaining Von Erich from the old school days in the middle there, which is cool.
Kevin.
These guys have been at AEW, they've been at Ring of Honor. So they're good to go, man. I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do in the ring, especially if they're a tag team.
Sure. I was just thinking, you've got Tama Tonga and Tongaloa in WWE now. Like, just imagine like 2 historic families against each other who have been, put in the work elsewhere first. I think it's such a great, like, it's so smart of him to, like, it shows a real understanding of the business of, like, you don't want to wear out your welcome too early. Then you have to end up leaving, or maybe they don't use you correctly, or like you want to be. I think WWE does its best or people do the best in WWE when they're fully formed before they get there. Right. And I think that is a great mentality for them to have, and will hopefully set them up for success. Because I what's wild to me, I don't think the Von Erich name has, even with the movie, has as much sway as it would have done 20, 30, maybe even like 10 years ago. Like enough time has passed. It's been almost like 40 years since the Von Erichs were really in their prime, like, 40, 30 years. So it's very fascinating, and I would hope that they get to come in and do some like big rivalries, or do the the blood against the Bloodline could be really fun. And as a tag team would be great. I don't. There was another story recently, and I can't remember the wrestler's name, but a wrestler who was big in Japan that came over to AEW and was like, "Yeah, I just kind of get paid to sit around because AEW just." No, it wasn't him, but it was another Japanese wrestler. But he was like, he's like, I'm making more money. I'm having like these great matches when I get to have a match, but I don't get to have a match that often. It's just kind of this weird, like AEW isn't great at raising people's stocks currently. I think WWE can do a better job of that when they do. They're not always great at that either. But I think that's really intriguing, and I would hope that they get to come join as a tag team, and I kind of hope that they stay away from AEW. I think the WWE tag team division is really good right now, and they can have a lot of strong opponents.
As long as the curse doesn't continue to, I'm serious. Like,
sure.
I don't even want to make light of it. Like, there's clearly some. This family did something really bad during the early days of antiquity or something. I don't know, man, because that family is cursed. Yeah. So maybe the curse would be going to AEW. I don't know. So
yeah. Well, at least that's the better end of it.
Yeah. Let's move to our last news story, buddy. Do you want to take this one? But before you do, I gotta ask: were you a Boy Meets World fan?
Absolutely. I would enjoy. My wife, when we were first dating, one of the first things she ever got me was the whole show on DVD. I used to watch that constantly. I watched it growing up. I was always a big Corey Matthews fan. Not so much now. Everybody look up what Ben Savage is doing, and you'd probably understand why. But he was a curly-headed, loud kid like myself, and so I loved that show. It was also, that was a show that very specifically I felt like I kind of grew up with. I was going through some of the stuff that they were going through on the show as I was watching it. So short answer.
I know you can relate, because your father was a world famous WWE superstar, right?
Correct. Yes, that was also part of it. Yeah.
I figured. Do you want to set this story up for us, man? This is a fun
So Boy Meets World had a lot of wrestlers on that show. Like, there were quite a few, and there is currently a Boy Meets World rewatch podcast, or I think they sometimes they rewatch, sometimes they talk about other stuff, with Danielle Fishel and Ryder Strong and Will Friedle do the Will Friedle. Yeah, I think that's it. But they recently had Bruce Pritchard on the show, and they talked about having Vader on the show and meeting Jake the Snake, and Topanga Danielle Fishel shared something about herself, which is pretty fun.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and play. This is a clip from that podcast. Pretty fun. The clip is broken into two little segments, so you'll see both. The first, I believe, is working with Vader and Jake the Snake. And I think the second is her dream of how she wants to be forever remembered, connected with wrestling. So go ahead and play this.
Would you put Danielle Fishel as a heel or as a hero in the ring?
Oh, heel all the way. Heel.
Okay.
All the way.
Yes. Oh, man. You're right.
Yes.
Everyone would assume I'm going to be a babyface. So you want to send me in as a heel.
No, you would be a heartbreaking heel.
I love it. Oh, I love it.
That would work.
Through that one in there too.
I do have a real, it's kind of a secret goal, but at some point in my life, I want to be put through a table.
Okay. I can make that happen.
Yeah, that's not that hard.
Not, all you have to do is ask one of us, Danielle. I'm sure.
I mean, in a wrestling ring.
Day 3 of the tour, just turn to us and we'll do it.
I would have thrown you through a table years ago, Danielle. Seriously.
Oh, thanks, Will. That's so sweet of you.
Whoever got really close to Leon when he was sweaty?
Oh, me.
Will.
All the time. And Will got picked up by him.
He would pick me up. So I was the guy that he would always pick up and bench press over his head and then throw me on his shoulder. It became like our thing. So yes, he would baby oil himself up and then get all sweaty.
The smell of Gold Bond powder.
Yeah. And use his rubber bands to get his shoulders working. And then he would grab me. So yeah, it was,
Is that the only smell you remember is the smell of Gold Bond powder?
And baby oil.
And baby oil. Okay.
I love that. I love that.
That's so fun.
I remember that very fondly. Of Corey joining the wrestling team and then ending up in an unsanctioned match, and Vader shows up because he's Ethan Suplee's dad. Ethan Suplee, who is jacked now. Yeah.
Talk about a transformation.
Yeah. That's awesome. They also Mankind was in a later season. Like Mick Foley as Mankind.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Like when they're in their college years. So they were no strangers to pro wrestling, which was pretty fun. That's wild. I also love that when she was like, "I want to be put through a table," Bruce Pritchard's like, "Sure, okay,
yep,
like
yeah, let's do it." I know someone, Bully Ray, who would be willing to do that in a heartbeat. So maybe we'll see that. Maybe we'll see that in WrestleMania 41. The other big thing that I thought was cool about this interview is they talked about how Jake the Snake and Vader, they literally went to a WWE live event to film for Boy Meets World.
That's right. There was another episode. I forgot about that because Vader was in 2 episodes.
Yep.
That's right.
And in the other one, they actually did a match, but it was all part of the script, the Boy Meets World script. So they went to a live event. Bruce Pritchard was in charge of the wrestling aspect, and Boy Meets World execs were obviously part of their thing. And Topanga specifically remembered hearing not too long ago that Jake the Snake, who was part of the episode, was super pissed off because the Boy Meets World directors kept being like, "All right, cut, we need you to do that again." And this is all during a live WWE event because they wanted the crowd, they wanted the arena, they wanted everything to look as real as possible. So they're literally cutting and making Jake the Snake and Vader go back and do moves over, do close-ups. And Jake the Snake was almost ready to walk out. Bruce Pritchard, remember, he said, "This is ridiculous. This is so embarrassing. You're breaking kayfabe beyond comprehension with all of this." And meanwhile, you got the Boy Meets World people being like, "No, we're a television show. You don't understand. We need to." So there was clearly a lot of creative differences going on. But at the end of the day, they made it work. And it's probably one of my favorite episodes of Boy Meets World. That's for sure. Yeah. Fun story.
Yeah.
I did skip a news story. Should we do it or should we just move on?
Let's keep going.
Let's keep going.
Let's talk about SmackDown Raw, and then we can get to our feuds.
Let's do it. We need to get to our feuds / rivalries. I don't know why. I like rivalries better. Maybe because there's that A&E show called that? I don't know.
There you go. Sure. Yeah. And I like feuds because I'm a Ryan Murphy stan. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not.
I love it. You big Glee fan, Andrew?
Huge. No, more nip tuck.
Okay. Awesome, buddy. Let's move to Raw and SmackDown this past week, or I should say SmackDown Raw. I'm gonna quickly fire through what happened on SmackDown. This was the contract signing for King and Queen of the Ring for Logan Paul and Cody Rhodes. And Logan Paul revised his contract, stipulating that only Rhodes Championship would be at stake. GM Nick Aldis contested, but Rhodes actually agreed to sign the amended contract. A war of words proceeded, a short brawl, and Rhodes clotheslined Paul out of the ring before powerbombing a member of his entourage through a table. So there you go. We will only have the Undisputed Championship on the line at King of the Ring. We also got Bianca Belair, who defeated Tiffany Stratton, the racist. Belair advanced to the Queen of the Ring semifinals. Solo Sikoa told Paul Heyman that he speaks to Roman Reigns all the time when asked about the Wise Man. So interesting. If true, we will see how this bloodline story continues to play out. Tama Tonga defeated L.A. Knight, advancing to the King of the Ring semifinals. Nia Jax defeated Jade Cargill, which was surprising to me, via disqualification after Jade Cargill hit Jax with a steel chair So
for yelling at her daughter.
Yeah.
That clip went pretty viral. That was pretty. As far as, again, I go back and forth on Nia Jax. That was some excellent heel stuff. That was
Agreed.
some real real fun.
And
There,
it was
I
good to
love that.
see. It was good to see Jade finally like have some personality and
Sure.
some what would you call it, like fault to her in terms of her not being this perfect thing that
Sure.
they've set her up to be. So
Sure.
I thought that was cool. Sorry to
fair.
interrupt. What were you gonna
No,
say?
that's okay. I just think it's funny that I not that it's something particularly new, but feels like there's a lot more emphasis on getting family members involved
Yeah.
recently. I think they saw what happened with Chad Gable and his daughters last year, and they were like, "We gotta keep that going."
We got agreed, man. Agreed. And then the let's see, what else am I forgetting here? Oh, the main event. How could I forget that? We had Randy Orton defeating Carmelo Hayes with an RKO, advancing to the
Pretty
king
great
of the
RKO
ring.
too.
Oh,
That was
dude.
real good, real
It
good.
was great.
Yeah,
So
real
all in
good.
all, good SmackDown. I was very pleased with it. A lot of
Yeah.
forward momentum moving to King of the Ring. And yeah. Anything else stand out to you before
So
we
is the
move to Raw?
last? So what is it? So it'll be Randy Orton against Tama Tonga on Friday.
Correct.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yep. That is right. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Now it all makes sense. I was trying to straighten it all in my head because there
I
were some
know, it's
people.
confusing.
Yeah. And especially because they're just kind of running like back and forth. But let's see. So the Raw highlights. Lyra Valkyria defeated Io Sky, and you have it in the notes here, but the best match of the night. A crazy statistic about this match is that it was longer than all of the Queen of the Ring matches combined.
Wow.
Yes, I believe it was like 19 minutes, and all the Queen of the Ring matches from 2021 were like 18 minutes altogether. So yeah. So to see that happen, and it was a big push for Valkyria. Like they must. I feel like Io Sky has been a big part of like pushing other wrestlers recently and giving them this is all part of it. Like they're pushing those new names, developing some new stars. That's some of my favorite stuff about the early post WrestleMania stuff. We had Chad Gable defeat Sami Zayn and tell him he wants his soul.
Your soul is mine.
Which they're doing great heel work with Chad Gable. On Braun Breaker was defeated Kale Dixon by referee stoppage, and as you had noticed, I know, and I get not being as big of a fan of his right now. What cracks me up is I think we talked about this last night. Is you were watching it and I was working on something, and then when I got to see some of the match, I was like, oh, you know what though? At least he looks really safe. Like they're doing. I think Braun Breaker is a very technically sound wrestler, and it's so funny the more I watch, where I'm just like, I don't know if the persona they've given him fits his style super well, because he doesn't. He has a lot of strength. He has a lot of speed, but there's nothing that looks kind of like dangerous about him. He's just he's technically sound, I think. So I think the whole like go in and squash and just beat somebody up isn't the best option for him, but maybe they'll move away from that. We'll have to wait and see. The Awesome Truth defeated JD McDonough and Finn Balor to retain their tag titles, which was a lot of fun. I'm completely sold on Awesome Truth at this point. I think they're doing great work. Becky Lynch and Liv Morgan exchanged some words. And there was also, by the way, at the beginning of the night, Liv Morgan got out of the same car as Finn Balor did. So they keep pushing that Judgment Day thing. Yeah. They keep on pushing that. The WWE Women's Tag Team Championship #1 contender match was won by Shayna Baszler and Zoe Stark, which I'm not super surprised by, because I think they're real hot on Shayna Baszler, which I get.
Yeah.
And Zoe Stark. I remember, I think whatever was it Backlash? I thought they had a really excellent promo. It might have been either Backlash or it might have been like the SmackDown before, but I think they're doing really great work with those two. And I'm excited to see where that goes. And Gunther beat Jey Uso, main event Jey Uso, to advance to the finals for the King of the Ring. And I love that match for a lot of reasons, but the big build up around it and feeling like it could go either way made it even more exciting. Because I think a lot of people assumed like, oh, we're going to see Tama Tonga against Jey Uso at King of the Ring. I still think we'll probably see, like, Gunter is obviously going. I still think he's going to win, but I think it could be pretty interesting if we see Gunter against Tomatonga in the King of the Ring finale. Given that it's a Saudi Arabia show, I doubt it. I think it's more of a chance that it would be Gunter and Randy Orton, because Randy Orton is still more of a name, even though Tomatonga is hot right now. But we'll see. I'm not sure. We'll find out on Friday.
That's true. That is true. I know we've got one more. I think of each show before, if I'm correct, before King of the Ring.
It's just Friday. Yeah, it's
just Friday. You're right,
Friday's
because
show.
it's on
Yep.
Saturday. Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
And
Yeah,
I'm
one more
actually wondering. My assumption is they'll film it ahead of time and then air it that night, but I'm not sure because SmackDown is in Saudi Arabia on Friday.
Correct. Yeah, that'll be interesting. And again, you mentioned this on your solo episode. I love these overseas PLEs because they always end up being early on the East and West Coast.
It's pretty nice.
Yeah. So it's great. Yeah, I know, especially since I'll be here on the East Coast for a while. I'm digging it, man. Awesome. So that was SmackDown and Raw, but we are at our main event for this episode, and that is our top 3 favorite feuds and or rivalries of all time.
Go to commercial break. Commercial break. Commercial break. Go to commercial. Commercial.
Do you like stories of the strange, the weird, and the unexplained? Then we want you to check out Jim Harold's Campfire. The concept is pretty simple. Jim talks to regular people about strange stuff that happens to them. And yes, that includes UFOs, along with cryptids, ghosts, and head scratchers. He doesn't exaggerate or play a lot of spooky music, kinda like I'm doing right now. The stories speak for themselves. One's like a ghost story involving serial killer Ted Bundy, or the young man who encountered an 8-legged demon. Then there's the story of an alien abduction by what could be considered a reptilian. Now, not all the stories are horrifying. Some are actually pretty heartwarming, like a visit from a past loved one or a peaceful near-death experience. Regardless, these are true and fascinating stories told by ordinary people who've had extraordinary experiences. Tune in to Jim Harold's Campfire on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to Somewhere in the Skies. And remember, stay spooky. So, how do we want to do this, buddy? You want to go first and give me your number 3?
I will kick it off. I will kick it off happily. It's NWO proper versus the NWO Wolfpack.
Nice.
That's a running theme for this one is I've tried to capture or pick feuds that really captured my imagination as a child, and the kind of teams, the splintering off of the teams, Kevin Nash forming his own team. I always loved Lex Luger in Wolfpack, but this kind of idea that there was a faction that was taking over WCW and then a faction split out of that faction, and that turned into kind of an all-out war. I loved when I was younger. Didn't end the best with the old finger poke of doom and the two groups combining. But I loved that. It was a big part of the video games for me. No matter what games I would play, it would always be Wolfpack against NWO. Even if I had to create them from scratch. WCW versus NWO Revenge on N64 was a huge one for that, where you could actually have the two teams going up against each other. So that's number 3 for me. It's the Wolfpack against the black and white NWO. It just has always stuck with me, and it was always some of the most exciting stuff when I was younger, and I was always Team Wolfpack for the people that are asking.
I knew they were asking.
Yeah,
burning curiosity of our listeners. I can hear it now. Ouch, my ears. I'm gonna move to my number 3, and forgive me, I'm a slave to a script, guys. I am a playwright, where Andrew is the improv comedian. My number 3 is going to be Lita versus Trish Stratus, which we covered a match on one of our match commentaries over on Patreon. So again, guys, hint, hint, go join our Patreon, where that will be moving behind the paywall soon. So get on it. So what I have here for Lita and Trish, their rivalry spans several years, starting in the early 2000s. Their iconic matches included the groundbreaking main event on Raw in December of 2004, which is the match we covered, where Lita defeated Trish to win the women's championship. Throughout their feud, Trish often played the glamorous, cunning heel, while Lita's edgy, risk-taking persona made her a beloved babyface. This rivalry not only showcased their individual talents, but also paved the way for future generations, proving that women could be main event attractions and significant draws in the wrestling industry. And we even got to see them kind of reunite. I believe it was last year with the whole Becky Lynch
Right.
storyline and
Yeah.
whatnot. And then Trish giving one of the best cage matches I've ever seen in the history of WWE with Becky Lynch. But yeah, man, I could watch Lita and Trish wrestle for days. Just the amount of technicality and just and you could tell they're friends in real life, just how
Mhm.
much they trust each other with some
Sure.
of those dangerous spots they did. So yeah, that's my number 3.
That's awesome. And I think what I love about that is that Lita, I think, made Trish a better wrestler. I mean, they made each other better, but it was, Trish came in as a model,
True.
and became one of the best women's wrestlers that the WWE has ever had. So, yeah, that's a great choice. My second one,
Yeah, let's go. Number
which
2.
is where I think I told you off mic, I think we might have some crossover, but we'll see. And there's already a tiny bit of crossover with it.
Okay.
And again, this is all just like things that like really struck me when I was young, especially like younger and a little bit more impressionable. It's Matt Hardy against Edge, which spun out of a real life event that involved Lita, where Matt Hardy and Lita had been dating, and then Edge and Lita had an affair, and that came out and caused some real problems backstage. And then Matt Hardy, I believe, went away for a little while and all of a sudden came back jacked and ready to fight Edge. And I remember when Matt Hardy first showed up, that was a moment where I was like, is this real? Is this really happening? Like, he's just showed up and the security's trying to pull, and they were really beating the hell out of each other. And it led to some great matches between the two of them. And we already had the, they were no strangers to each other by any means, because of all the tag team matches that they had against each other. So to see this explode the way that it did and kind of like dip its toe into reality in a way that like really should be a warning sign more than anything else. But it made for a great feud. It made for some great matches, and it made for some excitement that I just I wasn't prepared for even. And it made me a huge Matt Hardy fan at the time. And I am still to this day, honestly, and I like both of them, but I think I had never really thought about Matt Hardy before that. And then after that, I was all in on Matt Hardy going forward. I think he's fantastic. And I, as much as it probably shouldn't be done too often, it was nice that they were able to like, look, let's set our differences aside here and make money off this thing. And they did, and they had something that'll be remembered for a very long time.
Absolutely. I got 2 questions for you. The first, have you ever seen that clip where Lita had like a kind of her own like late night public access show, and Matt Hardy, like, this is after the breakup or the affair, he like would call her either drunk or high on the show and like speak as dude, it is one of the most awkward, most uncomfortable things. Go watch it, guys. Because that's what we do. We crave drama in the WWE world. There's that. And then my second question for you is, do you know, did Edge and Matt ever like make up? Like, I know they put their differences aside and made a ton of money off of this, but did they ever become friends again? I always wonder.
Not that I know of. My guess would be no. I think I just think it's a little hard to come back from something like that.
That's true. Especially with the simulated sex thing that happened after that.
Oh God.
Live on Raw.
Some of the worst, it was Raw's TNA / Spike TV era. Some of the worst stuff they've ever done.
Don't look that one up, guys.
And a perfect example of why I know a lot of people lamented the PG era, but there needed to be some kind of a reset after the hot lesbian action and all the terrible men stuff that they were doing so bad. But yeah, I that's a good question. I wonder that as well. Again, my assumption would be no, but You never know. At the end of the day, it's arguable that Matt Hardy should have been more mad at Lita than he was at Edge.
Right.
But yeah, it's all not great. Not great
All
stuff.
not great.
But
we
that
got
led
the
to a
rated R
great rivalry.
superstar out
And
of all of it.
we got that. I mean, Edge's profile rose significantly after that feud, and Matt Hardy's kind of like rose and then just kind of, evened out, as it were.
Yeah. Now we have broken Matt Hardy. So there.
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
that.
And hey, look, we had Matt Hardy version 1.0, which I
Right.
loved. I loved that. Matt Hardy is a fantastic wrestler. And that's it. That's all I'm gonna say. Matt Hardy's a fantastic wrestler. What's your number 2?
Moving to my number 2, I've got brother versus brother. I've got Undertaker versus Kane. Yeah, I knew someone had to pick it.
I when you had texted me, a little peek behind the curtain, a little break
Yeah.
in kayfabe, is that you had texted me if any of my feuds included the Undertaker, and at the time, Undertaker and Kane was on my list, and I was went. And I know it's okay. Because then I was like, oh, let me think outside the box and go. But that was another one. In short, I'm right there with you. That's a great feud. Please continue.
Awesome. Well, one of us thought outside the box. That would be Andrew. So here goes Ryan with his cliche number 2, Undertaker versus Kane. I'm just kidding, buddy. Debuting in 97, Kane was introduced as The Undertaker's long-lost brother, sparking an intense feud marked by dramatic and supernatural elements. Their battles featured iconic matches, including their first encounter at WrestleMania 14 and the fiery Inferno match at Unforgiven 1998. Despite their clashes, the Brothers of Destruction would also occasionally unite to dominate the tag team division. And the complexity of the relationship was so intriguing to me when I was younger, because I didn't have a brother growing up, so I never knew what it was like to have sibling rivalries. I had a sister who was 5 years younger than me, and we got along great usually. So I did always kind of wonder what it would be like to have a brother around the same age, let alone burned in a fire and with supernatural powers. So there was that. And yeah, if only all brother rivalries could have been as good as this one. I'm speaking of Jey Uso and Jimmy Uso to be exact. I know.
Those poor guys.
I know. But yeah, dude, just iconic. The Brothers of Destruction, and they just put on incredible matches. So that's my number 2.
Heck yeah. No, I that's a great choice. I think it's their match at WrestleMania 13. Where it's just a phenomenal match. And I remember Undertaker jumping over the ropes to dive to Kane because he used to do that stuff all the time.
Yeah, all the time. Yeah.
But what I love about that burned in the fire thing was that it was eventually revealed to be mental. When they removed Kane's mask when he was teaming with RVD, I want to say it was one of those fun because he teamed with RVD and X-Pac and the Hurricane. They would have Kane teamed with these odd choices that always worked for some reason.
Mutt and Jeff, man. If I've ever
there you
seen
go.
them.
There you go. Yeah. And he removed his mask, and then it was ugly Glenn Jacobs, and there was nothing burned on him at all.
Just ugly,
except for the burn of wokeness that he feels so significantly to this day. So yeah, really, great choice. Great choice.
Thank you.
Kane, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What do you got, my man, for your number 2?
This one is technically part of kind of a longer feud that went on for some time, but I'm going to focus on a microcosm of it, and it is Triple H against Cactus Jack.
Whoa.
So
I'm sorry, this is your number 1, right?
This is my number 1.
Forgive me. Okay.
No, yeah, it's okay. Yep, my
Love
number
it.
1, Triple H versus Cactus Jack.
Okay.
Cactus Jack Cactus Jack's first match in the WWE, even though he had already been against Mankind, was against Triple H. That is one of my favorite matches of all time. It was on a Monday Night Raw where Triple H was supposed to be fighting, I think, Mankind, but then there's a vignette that goes on where it's Mankind talking to Dude Love.
Yeah.
And just to be clear to everybody at home, all 3 of these people are played by Mick Foley. But it was Mankind talking to Dude Love about how they were supposed to fight Triple H, like, oh, one of us is going to fight Triple H. And they were like, ooh, no, let's let this person do it. And out comes Cactus Jack. And it was his first time. And Triple H sells it so incredibly well. I remember Mick Foley talking about this on like his career DVD. He sells it so well. It makes it seem like such a huge deal. And then Cactus Jack comes out and beats him. And it's one of the few times I think he would actually beat him. But it would lead to two of my other favorite matches of all time, which is the 2000 Royal Rumble, which was a street fight between Triple H and Cactus Jack, which is just incredibly gnarly. And I remember the big, like, it was again like a big, like, Mankind was like, oh, I know who's going to wrestle you. Like, I think you know the guy. And he like takes off the shirt and tie and he's Cactus Jack. And they have this incredible match where The Rock interferes and Road Dogg and X-Pac come out. And like all the, like, it's just, and there's thumbtacks and barbed wire and they're just beating the hell out of each other. And then they take it a step further and do the same thing at No Way Out in a Hell in a Cell match about a month or two later.
Yep.
And you can feel the intensity in the match. Their styles match each other so well. They play off of each other so well. Triple H always seemed dead at the end of those matches. And while I love the 1998 King of the Ring Hell in a Cell match between Mankind and The Undertaker, I watch the No Way Out one more often. Because Mick Foley didn't almost kill himself during that match, which he did during the 1998 King of the Ring match. But he still, we had he was going to give a pile driver to Triple H on top of the cell, and Triple H flips him and he falls down through the cell and into the mat. It is insane. It's a great match. Those two worked so well together. You would see he would return as Mick Foley for WrestleMania 2000 a few months later, but yeah, Triple H against Cactus Jack. Those are three of my favorite matches of all time, probably my favorite rivalry of all time, and the little span of that like Royal Rumble to WrestleMania made Mick Foley probably my favorite wrestler of all time.
Fantastic choice, man. I completely forgotten about that feud. So awesome. It brought me down memory lane, that's for sure. Okay, I know my number one is a bit controversial, as it should be.
Al Snow and Big Boss Man.
Oh, completely. Yeah. Who wants head? Nobody? Okay.
That's the feeding somebody a dog storyline. Yeah.
Don't remind me. I hate to say it, but my all-time favorite rivalry is Vince McMahon and Stone Cold Steve Austin. I mean, it defined the Attitude Era.
Oh, absolutely.
It just, corporate boss versus rebel wrestler. It just, it was perfect at the time. It was perfect for what it was. I'm going to go ahead and read this. McMahon and Austin is one of the most legendary and influential storylines in WWE history. It began in the 90s during the Attitude Era, with Austin embodying the rebellious anti-hero, McMahon, the WWE chairman. The feud marked by a series of memorable moments, including Austin's beer truck incident, still one of my all-time favorite moments, where he doused McMahon and the corporation with beer. And then there was also the infamous hospital skit where Austin attacked McMahon in the hospital with a bedpan. The storyline resonated with fans, tapping into the universal appeal of blue-collar worker standing up to the oppressive authority figure. And the rivalry led to numerous matches and confrontations. Most memorably for me was St. Valentine's Day Massacre.
I was gonna say, I was literally sitting on that. That's my favorite. That's my favorite match in their whole feud. That's my favorite one.
Probably the only good match of that PLE too, to be completely honest.
Sure. And we get that you call it a pay-per-view. It's
pay-per-view.
You call
that
it
was back in the pay-per-view days.
Sorry,
sorry, everybody.
I love that match. We get to see the WWE debut of Paul White coming up through the ring, which I just don't even know how they did. And
he
then
was under the ring the whole time.
I believe it.
I heard him in an interview say that.
That's crazy.
And they didn't have to do that. They said like this was the point where they didn't have to do that whole gimmick of like someone coming out from under the ring. But because it was his first time, they were, they wanted to what's the word? Sort of initiate him.
Sure,
give him
and look, it's
yeah.
very memorable, and it was awesome
Totally.
to see him bust through the ring like that and be
Yep.
that huge, and to throw Austin at the cage and have it break, and then that's how Austin wins.
It was
And I
perfect.
remember, I want to say it was like New Year's Eve the following year, they were doing a, it was like a Raw or a SmackDown, but it was like a clip show basically. And I remember Vince McMahon in an interview being like, you know, and everybody thought like, oh, after all that, Austin won. Like it's he's so dug in kayfabe wise. Be like, well, you probably loosened the cage, man. Like, what are you talking? Like, it's so funny to see him just like really double down and be like, oh, I can't believe this happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's fair. That's a great feud. And like, look, we can just always say it doesn't have to be controversial. Vince McMahon sucks and is a terrible person, and even a broken clock is right 2 times a day. So.
Yeah. Totally.
You know, that was, it's that changed. That is a magic that has yet to be recaptured at all.
Mm-hmm.
At all. Again, I don't know if it ever will again, especially with the more corporatization of WWE. There's a chance they tried in AEW recently, and they don't have it's just not. Tony Khan's not good at that stuff. He can wear a neck brace all he wants, but it's still the awful, terrible, no good Vince McMahon was a good in-ring performer. He was around it his whole life and has more. It's one of those classic. I don't think Tony Khan is comfortable being in a wrestling ring yet, being in front of people. And Vince McMahon was around that and in the ring and an announcer and like doing every aspect of that before he ever really started to do stuff like that, especially with like the stuff with Austin. So he's comfortable.
Yeah.
And you know, he was playing up the fact that he sucks, which we know is a real thing. So it wasn't a big stretch for him. Whereas Tony Khan's trying to pretend like he's not a whiny rich kid. And we were just like, just lean into it, man. You're trying to be the face. Man. Nobody likes you. What are you talking about? That's insane. Nobody likes the Young Bucks either. So that's the problem they have. Oh,
like man. I want a Tony Khan coming in on a helicopter, you know, like Richie Rich style. Like, give me some gold-plated super soakers, or like
do the Ted DiBiase stuff. Like, it's there.
Give me a Dalmatian with dollar signs. Like, that's what I want from Tony Khan. But, yeah, man. I mean, again, this defined an entire era of WWE. Mm-hmm. It made Stone Cold Steve Austin kind of a icon, and forever changed his life. I would say that the chemistry between those two was undeniable. So yeah, that's my number one. We do have submissions from our Facebook page and a couple audio submissions of our listeners' favorites. Do you want me to go ahead and run through those?
Yes.
You're going to love these, man. One of our listeners who sent in an audio submission agreed with one of your choices. So I'm going to go ahead and play that one first. And let's give this a listen.
Gentlemen, hello. I gotta tell you my favorite feud. It is not the best feud, but it is my favorite feud. I'm Topher Mac. And this is what I'm trying to tell you. Edge, Matt Hardy, the fury, the anger. I'm talking about way back. I think it was 2005, 2006-ish, somewhere in that ballpark, when Matt Hardy had caught Edge having an affair with Lita in the real world, and that stuff bubbled up, and it got Matt Hardy fired. And then when Matt Hardy came back, it all felt so real. It felt more real than the NWO angle felt. And that was, levels of real I never thought anyone could get near. And I've even rewatched it, and it's still like, oh, look at that anger and fury. Those potatoes were flying. Matt Hardy is known for potatoes, but those potatoes made Matt Hardy's regular potatoes look like, wimpy slaps. So that's my jam. I want to hear what y'all think about it, because that is what a feud should be. Pure hatred, pure anger. I want to see the other person die. Oh, but Matt Hardy says, I will not die. Loved it. Hope y'all are well. Love the show. I'm out.
I've never heard the term baby. Wimpy slaps before, but that's I think Topher's on the money. Like there was that kind of like real intensity to it. So
yeah,
but that's what makes stuff memorable.
Exactly.
Yeah. There's always the that it's tough because even now I'm just like, some some people have managed to reach that intensity without having a real life affair happen. It's the old the story where Dustin Hoffman asks Laurence Olivier, like, how do you get into character? And he's like, it's called acting, Dustin. So it's, but it's true. There is still, but it's undeniable that having that extra element raises the bar for that feud.
It helped. It apparently helped. Awesome. Well, this next one we got an audio submission is a rivalry I never would have thought of. And it's a match that I want to definitely do with you on the match commentaries. So much so I already downloaded the match. So hopefully we'll get to it soon, but I'm going to go ahead and play this one. This comes from Lopaka K in Hawaii.
I want to talk about a rivalry. This is from the old NWA National Wrestling Alliance days in the 80s. It was a rivalry that ended with a dog collar chain match between Greg the Hammer Valentine and Roddy Piper. There's video footage of that somewhere, but that's, for me, the best rivalry, in my opinion.
Cool.
Yeah, man.
That does sound great.
Again, I brought up Roddy Piper as one of my all-time favorite heels, and I was not aware of this match, and I had to dig deep to find it because those two went at it a lot in the very early days before Piper made it up to WWE. But that dog collar match or whatever it was called, it is brutal. I watched it last night and I had to take a shower after. It was rough. So yeah, I thought that was an interesting choice by Lopaka, one I never ever would have thought of.
Oh yeah, thank you to Lopaka and Topher. But I can't think about Greg the Hammer Valentine without thinking about the fact that I was at a Comic-Con once because I used to work them a lot and do interviews. And I walked by the Hammer's table and there was just nobody at his table. And and I'm sure there's other, like, look, it's that stuff can be said across the board for a lot of different reasons. I remember Virgil once using our internet so we could check the horse races. But the Hammer was by himself, and I just walked up and I was just like, hey, this is why I think you're really great. And I knew very little about him at the time. But I was like, I think you're really, and he just kind of was like, okay, thank you. Like, it's just, which I get because I was bothered. It was just like, okay, you're going to buy something. Like, I'm not here for people to tell me they think that I'm good.
What's great about me? Name one match. Name one match.
Which would have been fair. I would have been screwed. Like, it would have been terrible. So yeah.
Oh man. Dude, I can only imagine some of these poor guys at these Comic-Cons.
It's hard, especially,
but hey, they're trying. They're hustling.
Yeah. And I mean, they came from a time where, like, money management and things like that were not.
Yeah.
A lot of these guys all of a sudden had more money than they knew what to do with and did not use it wisely. And it stinks. And luckily, like, we're lucky that so many of them have made it out of the other side unscathed for the most part. So
JR is a huge advocate of that. In fact, I think he even does like fundraisers to help wrestlers who are in tough spots and have made those mistakes. He always said, the number one thing in wrestling, know how to save your money and know how to invest your money because it'll be gone in an instant. So, and so are your career if something goes wrong. So
I mean, how many stories have we had to see with former pro wrestlers being like, I need help paying my medical bills
all the time
because I wrestled, like, and it's not a bug, it's a feature. You know what I mean? Like, it's
this is why we're still striving for unions in wrestling, professional wrestling.
Yeah. Another reason we can't do a Hulk Hogan roast because that would be 80% of the jokes.
Right. We could do a Jesse Ventura one though.
Him union busting.
Yeah.
Oh man. I think you know what, actually, I bet Ventura could take the heat and then knock everybody down by the end.
I think so.
Ventura is actually a good choice.
I love him. him.
Yeah, me too.
Conspiracy theory aside, I love him. Awesome. Let's move to some of the written ones here quickly, Andrew. Paul Kimball, our friend who was on the show. He says Bret Hart versus Shawn Michaels. Yes. Because it mixed real world beef, like we were mentioning earlier, with in-ring beef, because they represented different styles and eras, and because they were the two best wrestlers in the world at the time. Plus, it ended in epic fashion with the Montreal Screwjob, a story that transcended wrestling, and they eventually brought it full circle by burying the hatchet and becoming, if not friends, then mutually respectful adversaries. Best rivalry ever.
It's a very good one. It's very
It's
good.
a really
Yeah.
good one. Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You want to go ahead and take the next one there? Lawrence
Sure.
D.
Lawrence D said Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes, two blonde bad boys whose in-ring rivalry lasted a few decades, even though they were great friends outside of the ring. And I think that's a great aspect of it. That's a great point to bring up. I like, again, the real world beef is great. I do love when you can get a real rivalry, and then, like, those guys would probably have to hide having a beer together after the match. Like, it's because at the end they're performers, they're coworkers, they're putting on a show together. I'm always more interested, even though I did bring up the Matt Hardy Edge story. I always love when I hear stories of, like, yeah, these guys took each other to hell and back, but then afterwards they would just, they're watching each other's kids and they're hanging out with their families, and it's I love that stuff.
I was just watching Dark Side of the Ring, the Brawl for All episode. I forget the guy who won the Brawl for All. Do you remember his name?
Dr. Death, wasn't it? Dr.
No. Oh, maybe it was. Oh gosh, I should know this. I literally just watched it. But anyways, he was saying that these guys, the Brawl for All was real. I mean, these guys were beating each other up relentlessly in real life.
Right. No, yeah, it was Bart Gunn.
There we go. Bart Gunn won.
Yes, he won, and he, I believe, ended
the career.
Dr. Death's career during that very ill-advised, stupid Vince Russo idea.
Bro, genius, bro. Again, I'm not good.
I think he even kind of admits in the episode that it wasn't the best idea.
Oh yeah, he regretted it. Top to bottom.
Yeah, having
so did Jim Cornette.
Fighters actually fight. Oh man, yeah.
Well, the reason I was bringing it up is a lot of those guys after the Brawl for All had to go stay in hotel rooms together after actually beating the crap out of each other. So welcome to pro wrestling, I guess. Do you want to take that next one too, Mike D?
Sure, absolutely. Mike D. So I was a big fan of the 1990s, and back then I loved the way they would do feuds. They would usually last a whole year. This was the case for Owen Hart versus Bret Hart. It began at the 1994 Royal Rumble when Owen, feeling overshadowed by Bret, attacked him, setting the stage for a heated sibling rivalry. Their feud reached its peak at WrestleMania 10, where Owen secured a surprising victory over Bret and a technical masterpiece. Despite their intense in-ring rivalry, which included a brutal steel cage match at SummerSlam 1994, the storyline always carried an underlining theme of familial tension and jealousy. The rivalry not only elevated Owen Hart as a legitimate star, but also showcased Bret's resilience and technical prowess.
Beautifully
one
written.
too. Yeah.
Yeah. Man,
that's I a great choice. Like, and that's Owen Hart. I know, man. That rocked me hard when I was little. So yeah, great choice.
Great choice. Again, an example of a sibling rivalry that was good.
Leave the Usos alone, Ryan.
I'm sorry.
Leave them alone. Leave Jay and Jimmy alone.
Anyways, moving to our last one here. Brian W., our good friend Brian over on Facebook. Love you, brother. Always sending us the good stuff. He says Diamond Dallas Page and Hulk Hogan. So in 1998, Hogan and Eric Bischoff took on DDP and Jay Leno.
Yep.
After Hogan took over the Tonight Show with Eric. What the? I don't remember this at all.
You don't?
No. And then we got to see Jay Leno put Hogan in a wrist lock, which was amazing. And then later in 1998, it was Dennis Rodman in Hulk Hogan versus DDP. Dennis Rodman actually
in DDP, and it wasn't. Is it Karl Malone was his partner?
Oh, was it? I don't have that here.
So.
But
I'll look it up. Keep talking.
Okay. Dennis Rodman ended up skipping the Chicago Bulls practice for the NBA championship game to go to Monday Night Nitro. The match took place after the Bulls beat the Jazz, continuing the story of a real sport being integrated into professional wrestling. But overall, the storyline between DDP and Hulk Hogan was my all-time favorite.
Great choice. And again, it was Karl Malone.
Okay.
Rodman and Karl Malone were actually playing basketball against each other at the time. And there is a whole segment, one of the greatest documentaries I've watched that probably would have been better if it wasn't produced by Michael Jordan's production company, is The Last Dance. I remember watching that when lockdown started. It's a 10-part about Michael Jordan's return season or final season with the Bulls. Yeah, obviously The Last Dance. But it covers a lot of stuff extensively, and they get into Rodman skipping practice to go to Vegas and to go wrestle and to do all the it is wild. Brian, that's a great choice. Like that stuff. And it's so funny because I remember it shows what Bischoff really enjoyed, because not only did that happen when Mike Tyson was brought in for the Shawn Michaels Stone Cold feud, Bischoff has said in interviews that he remembered thinking at the time, like, oh, we might be in trouble. That's a really good idea. And that and it's kind of all downhill from there for WCW after that. So that's so funny. What a microcosm. I remember them talking about that on SportsCenter about how it's like, yeah, it's going to be Jay Leno. Cause like it's really
Oh
funny.
my gosh, I love it.
And the Malone and Rodman, something that would just never fly today.
Nope.
At least not the way that it did then.
Right. Thank you, Brian.
I think there was even some like them implicating that Rodman and Malone were like kind of talking about it during the games too. Like they were kind of hashing it out. Of Rodman being like, you want to make more money off of this? Like it's really wild, really crazy.
Man, Rodman had that mindset, man. He would have been a good sideman to Triple H, maybe. I don't know. I love it though. If you guys haven't watched, Brian sent us this incredible video of his entire wrestling collection in his house. I would highly suggest going over to our YouTube channel and watching that. It puts us to shame in terms of lovers, not experts. I think Brian's the true expert and fan out of the three of us. But yeah, go check that out. Thank you to all of you who submitted audio and your favorite choices for rivalries. But that's gonna do it, Andrew. I guess we'll get to closing. You have something incredible happening this upcoming week. I had the fortune of watching a short film that you directed. So would you tell us a little about the premiere coming up and maybe a little about the film, if you don't mind?
Absolutely. It's going to be making its premiere at the Inwood Artworks Festival, which is very exciting. And Inwood in, oh, there she is. And it's a film called Bald that was written by my good friend, Andrea Edgerson. And it was produced by her production company, Two Brown Girls Productions. And we actually filmed it back in 2019. And I volunteered my services as a director. Is one of the first things that I directed. And Treya had a passion and vision for this story that was infectious and inspiring, and I was so happy to just be even a small part of it, because there was so much of what she wanted already planned out. I was just there to make sure, like, things were moving along and work with the actors and all that, like, the stuff that a director does. But this is really she's turned it into a short that I'm incredibly proud of, and I'm so incredibly proud of her and the work that she's done, and her producing partner, Alexandra Campos, who's also was in the short. They're just both fantastic, and it's a great short. And if you're in New York, you want to come see it, please hop on by. Just very excited for that premiere. It's going to be a good time. Very, very proud.
That's awesome.
Thanks for bringing it up.
My pleasure. I saw some familiar faces in the movie as well, so that was great to see. Hopefully all of you guys will get to see it in the future after it does the festival circuit. Very powerful short film. And if a short film can be that impactful, you've done something damn right. So congratulations to all of you on this.
Yeah.
I can't wait for it to get out to the world. And we want to hear from you guys as well. Send us your listener questions. We haven't gotten those in a while. I think we have a few in the backlog, but we would love for you to send us any questions you have, or feedback, guest suggestions, topic suggestions. Just send them to our email, either in just a normal email, or we love voice memos, kind of like you heard in today's episode. All of that can be sent to somewhereinthering@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you and make you guys more a part of the show every week, like we did today. Other than that, again, our special thanks to Rebecca D for becoming a Patreon subscriber. You can become a Patreon at patreon.com/somewhereinthering podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Somewhere Ring. Follow us on Instagram at Somewhere Ring Pod. It's not Twitter. I'm not calling it. I'm not calling it the other thing.
There we go. No, yeah, don't.
No.
Yeah, don't.
Follow
Don't do
us
it.
on Twitter. Twitter is what it is, and you will follow us there.
If you type in twitter.com, it still goes to the website. So that's
go figure.
Yeah,
Go
yeah.
figure. And lastly, guys, join our highly active Facebook group. Just type in Somewhere in the Ring podcast. We're having a ton of fun over there. And hopefully we're going to get the Twitch streams going up again soon with Andrew playing WWE Y2K.
Yeah, Y2K 20. Yep, 27.
Yeah, that
2027. And just to offer a little, I almost hesitate to do this, but I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. But we're having a nice, fun podcast crossover next week.
Yes, we
I won't
are.
say who with, but if anybody has any Star Wars questions, feel free to send those as well. That's my little tease.
Oh, I've got some.
There. Okay, perfect. Yeah. So, next week, be on the lookout for that. Thank you as always for listening, Ryan. Thank you as always.
Thank you, buddy. Always a pleasure. And I'm going to let you do the honors this time. Please ring that bell so we can get out somewhere in the ring.
Oh, God. Nope.
This has been Somewhere in the Ring. Thank you for listening. Subscribe wherever you get your pods, and be sure to rate and review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever possible. We'll see you again soon, somewhere in the ring.